My pregnant sister-in-law manipulated my husband and turned my family against me. I tried to talk it out, but then, all right, I need some honest advice because my family is starting to make me feel like I'm losing my mind. I, 32F, have been married to my husband, Matt, 34M, for 5 years. He's great, but his sister, Kayla, 28F, has always been a bit dramatic. Kayla and I used to get along just fine until she started dating Tom, 30M, 3 years ago. Since then, things have been rocky. Kayla and Tom are very in your face about everything. Their relationship, their career achievements, their problems. It's always their show. Matt and I are more reserved. We don't make a big fuss about things and tend to keep our lives private. But Kayla and Tom thrive on drama, and lately, it's reached a new level because Kayla is pregnant. This is her first baby, and she's ecstatic. I get it. I'm really happy for her, and I've tried my best to support her, helping her set up a nursery, throwing her a baby shower, and listening to her vent about morning sickness. The issue is that ever since she announced the pregnancy, she's been acting like it's a free pass to demand anything she wants and bulldoze over everyone's boundaries. Last weekend was the tipping point, and now the whole family is divided. It all started when Kayla and Tom moved into a new house across town. They needed help unpacking and asked Matt and me to come over. We agreed, even though we were busy with our own stuff. But when we got there, they hadn't packed anything. Like, not even a single box was taped up. The place was a mess, and Kayla was sitting on the couch while Tom was complaining about how stressed he was. I didn't say anything at first, because I know she's pregnant and all, but after hours of doing everything, including lifting heavy boxes, which she never offered to help with, even with the light stuff, I asked Kayla if there was anything else we needed to do. She sighed dramatically and said, "Well, since I'm pregnant, I'm just really not up to doing much, you know?" I brushed it off, but then she made Matt run out to buy a specific brand of sparkling water because she needed it, and the regular bottled water I brought wasn't good enough. He was gone for almost an hour because none of the nearby stores had it. When he got back, she took a sip and wrinkled her nose, saying it was too warm, and could I put it in the fridge and bring her something else? That was when I lost it. I told her, "Kayla, pregnancy isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. We're here to help, but this is getting ridiculous." She looked stunned, then started crying and saying that I didn't understand what she was going through. Tom jumped in, telling me I was being insensitive and that Kayla deserved to be treated like a queen right now. Matt looked uncomfortable but stayed quiet, which made me feel like I was standing on an island alone. The whole thing exploded when Kayla called my mother-in-law and complained that I yelled at her. Emile called me later that night and gave me a long lecture about how I need to be more understanding and cut Kayla some slack because she's pregnant. I tried explaining my side, but she just kept saying, "Well, you're not a mother yet, so you wouldn't understand." That really hurt, especially because Matt and I have been trying for a baby for almost 2 years now with no success. It's been a sore spot for us, and I've never told Kayla because I didn't want it to take away from her happiness. Now, I felt like the whole family was ganging up on me, and I ended up crying in frustration that night. Matt said he understands why I was upset, but thinks I could have been gentler with how I said it. Kayla's always been sensitive, he said, and now, with the pregnancy hormones, it's even worse. Can you just apologize to keep the peace? I was fuming. Why should I apologize when she's been using her pregnancy as an excuse to be rude and make everyone cater to her every whim? But I didn't want to keep dragging it out, so I texted her an apology for snapping at her. I kept it short and genuine, saying I didn't mean to hurt her feelings, but was feeling overwhelmed that day. Her response? She left me on read and has been cold-shouldering me ever since. Honestly, I'm feeling so many things right now: guilt, anger, resentment. I do feel bad for upsetting her. I know she's dealing with a lot, and I've been trying to be supportive. But where's the line between being supportive and being a doormat? I feel like she's been using her pregnancy as a way to control everyone around her, and it's not just affecting me. Matt's been bending over backwards for her, even neglecting some things we've been working on at home. It's starting to feel like every conversation revolves around Kayla's pregnancy, her needs, her feelings. And whenever I try to voice how I'm feeling, I get dismissed as being selfish or unsympathetic. I'm exhausted emotionally and physically. I talked to Matt again last night and tried to make him understand how isolated I'm feeling, but he just sighed and said he's caught in the middle. I know he loves his sister, but I wish he would stand up for me a little more. He suggested we take some space from his family for a bit to let things cool off, but then Emile called this morning inviting us to a family dinner specifically to talk about the situation and clear the air. I don't even know if I want to go. It feels like no one's interested in hearing my side. They just want me to apologize again and make Kayla feel better. So, yay for telling my pregnant sister-in-law that she's taking things too far. I know I could have been more patient, but I feel like I'm constantly being guilted into doing things for her, and I'm reaching a breaking point. Am I wrong for thinking she's using her pregnancy to manipulate the family? How do I handle this without burning bridges? Any advice would be really appreciated right now. Against my better judgment, I agreed to go to the family dinner. I knew it was going to be uncomfortable, but I didn't want to give everyone the satisfaction of thinking I was hiding or avoiding the situation. Plus, Matt seemed genuinely relieved when I said yes, so I figured maybe this would be our chance to hash things out in person. When we got to my in-laws' house, the tension was thick. Kayla and Tom were already there, sitting together on one side of the room, looking like they were bracing for battle. My mother-in-law greeted us with a strained smile and motioned for us to sit down. Matt squeezed my hand and whispered that everything would be fine, but I wasn't so sure. The discussion kicked off with my father-in-law clearing his throat and saying, "We're all family, and families sometimes have misunderstandings, right?" He glanced around the room like he was expecting everyone to nod along, but no one did. Kayla had her arms crossed and looked like she was waiting for an apology, and I felt my frustration starting to bubble up again. Mother-in-law jumped in next. "I just think we need to all be more mindful of Kayla's condition. This is a special time for her, and we should all be more considerate." "More considerate?" I echoed, trying to keep my voice steady. I've done everything I can to support her, but it feels like I'm always walking on eggshells. If I say or do anything she doesn't like, I'm suddenly the bad guy. Tom cut in, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, because asking for some sparkling water was such a hardship for you." "Tom," Matt warned, but Tom rolled his eyes and leaned back, obviously not caring. I took a deep breath, feeling my face heat up. It's not about the water. It's about how every little thing turns into a huge ordeal. I've been bending over backwards, trying to help, and I feel like nothing I do is ever good enough. Kayla looked up, her eyes glistening. "You think I want to feel like this? I'm tired all the time, I'm emotional, and I'm scared something might go wrong. And then you snap at me when I'm just trying to get through the day." Hearing her say that threw me off balance. This was the first time she'd actually been vulnerable about how she was feeling. I softened a little, but still felt the need to defend myself. "I'm not trying to make things harder for you, Kayla. I'm just struggling to keep up with all the demands. And when I try to set a boundary, I get painted as the villain." Emile put her hand on Kayla's knee and looked at me with a frown. "Maybe if you just apologized again, it would help. You know, she's sensitive right now." I couldn't believe it. It was like everything I was saying was going in one ear and out the other. I felt like I was on trial, and no matter what I said, I'd already been found guilty. "Why do I always have to apologize?" I asked, my voice wavering. "Why is it that every time Kayla's upset, it's automatically my fault?" Matt shifted uncomfortably beside me. "It's not about fault. It's about making peace. Just let it go. Let it go." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at that. If I let it go, what happens next time? because there will be a next time. What? I'm just supposed to drop everything whenever Kayla asks for it. And if I say no, I'm the bad guy again. There was silence. For a moment, it seemed like no one knew what to say. Then Kayla, in a small voice, said, "I never asked you to do everything. You just started doing it." I stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. "What do you mean?" "I know I've been needy," she admitted, looking down at her lap. "But when I got pregnant, I was scared. And you were the first person to step up and offer to help. You were always there, giving advice, checking in. I guess I just thought you wanted to be more involved." I blinked, feeling my anger drain away as confusion took its place. Had I misread the situation? Was I projecting my own resentment onto her because I felt like I had to be the perfect sister-in-law? I glanced at Matt, but he looked just as taken aback as I was. "Kayla, I did want to help," I said slowly, but I didn't realize I was taking on too much either. I felt like I couldn't say no, and it just built up until I snapped. MIL interjected softly, "Maybe we all need to do a better job of communicating. It's been a tough adjustment for everyone." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I'm sorry for snapping at you, Kayla. I should have talked to you earlier instead of letting it get to that point." She wiped at her eyes and nodded. "I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have called Mom and made it into a bigger deal. I don't want you to hate me." Hearing her say that made something in me shift. All this time, I thought Kayla was being manipulative or inconsiderate, but maybe she was just overwhelmed like I was. Maybe we were both reacting to the pressure in our own ways and failing to see the other's side. After that, the mood shifted a little. We ended up talking more openly. Kayla confessed that she's been terrified because the pregnancy wasn't planned, and she felt unprepared. Tom admitted he's been stressed too, and that he snapped at me because he's trying to juggle work and preparing for the baby. Even Matt admitted he felt caught between wanting to support his sister and not neglecting our own relationship. We didn't resolve everything right then and there, but I think we made some progress. Matt and I decided to set clearer boundaries going forward, like only helping out on specific days or taking breaks when we need to. Kayla agreed to try and be more understanding and not take it personally when I say no. Before we left, she pulled me aside and quietly said, "I know it's hard for you too. I don't know what's going on with you and Matt, but I'm here if you need to talk." It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. Maybe she didn't know about our struggles, but she was at least acknowledging that I had my own battles. So I guess I'm still figuring it all out. I'm not entirely sure who was in the wrong, because we were all a little selfish in our own ways. But I feel like we're starting to understand each other better now. Kayla and I even made plans to grab coffee next week, just the two of us, to talk about everything that's been going on. No drama, no family interference. I'm still worried that we'll fall back into the same pattern, but I'm hopeful that we can move past this and build a better relationship. What do you think? Should I have handled things differently? Or am I right to put some boundaries in place, even if it ruffles a few feathers? I'd love to hear your thoughts or advice. A few days later, I met up with Kayla at a small cafe near her new house. I was nervous the whole drive over, my hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me. What if we ended up arguing again? What if she said something that reopened old wounds? But when I got there, Kayla was already seated at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs in front of her. "I ordered you a cappuccino." "Hope that's okay," she said with a tentative smile. I nodded, feeling the tension ease just a fraction. "Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks." We made small talk for a while about her pregnancy, the baby kicking for the first time, and whether she'd settled into the new house. It felt almost normal, like before everything got complicated. But I knew we couldn't avoid the bigger conversation forever. After a lull, Kayla shifted in her seat and cleared her throat. "So, I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other night, about feeling like you had to help out all the time. I took a deep breath, bracing myself. Yeah, I guess I never realized how much pressure I was putting on you. I mean, I knew I was asking for help a lot, but I just thought you'd say no if you didn't want to. I never imagined it made you feel, I don't know, trapped. Because I didn't say no, I admitted quietly. I felt like I couldn't. Everyone's been so excited about the baby, and I didn't want to come across as the bitter sister-in-law who couldn't be happy for you. She looked at me sharply. You're not bitter, though. Why would you think that? I hesitated. This was the part one hadn't shared with anyone, not even Matt. But if we were going to have an honest conversation, I knew I had to put it out there. Because Matt and I have been trying to have a baby too. For a while now, I bit my lip, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to take away from your joy, but every time I came over to help, I'd go home and cry because it just reminded me of what I can't seem to have. Kayla's eyes widened, and her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me? I shrugged helplessly. I didn't want to put that on you. You were already dealing with so much. And I know it's not your fault. I am happy for you. But sometimes it just hurts, you know. For a moment, she just stared at me, looking stunned. Then she reached across the table and grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. I'm so sorry. I would have backed off if I'd known. I've been so wrapped up in my own stuff that I didn't even think to check in with you. It's not your responsibility, I said quickly, but she shook her head. No, it is. Because you're my family too. And if I'm making things harder for you, without realizing it, I need to know. I don't want to push you away. I blinked back tears. I don't want to be pushed away either. I guess I just wish we could have been more honest from the start. I should have told you how I was feeling, and maybe you wouldn't have felt like I was silently judging you all the time. She nodded slowly. Yeah, and maybe I could have told you how scared I've been. It's not all rainbows and sunshine over here, you know? Tom and I weren't even planning for this. And with Mom constantly babying me and everyone fussing, I sometimes feel like I can't even breathe. Why didn't you say anything? I asked softly. Because I thought I was supposed to have it all together, she whispered, her voice breaking a little. I thought if I admitted I was scared, people would think I wasn't ready to be a mom. There it was. The raw honesty I'd been looking for. I squeezed her hand back, feeling something loosen inside me. Kayla, you're going to be a great mom. Being scared doesn't change that. It just means you care. She sniffed, wiping her eyes quickly. I'm trying to care a little less about what everyone thinks and focus more on the baby, you know. But it's hard. I nodded. Yeah, it is. Maybe we can both work on that. Caring a little less about what people think and being more open with each other. She gave me a shaky smile. I'd like that. We sat there for a while, sipping our coffee and talking more openly than we had in months. I told her about how Matt and I had been going to a fertility specialist and how draining it had been, emotionally and financially. She opened up about the pressure Tom's been putting on himself to get everything perfect before the baby arrives and how that's been affecting their relationship. It felt like we were finally pulling back the curtain and seeing each other for real, flaws and all. Before we left, she hugged me tight and said, I know I've been needy and I might still need your help sometimes, but I promise I'll try to respect your boundaries more. And I want you to know you can come to me too for anything. Thanks, Kayla. And I'll do the same. I don't want to be the sister-in-law who hides her feelings anymore. After that coffee date, things really started to change. Kayla held true to her word. She stopped making demands and started asking instead. If she needed help moving something or picking up baby supplies, she'd ask me, do you have time to help, or would it be too much? It seems like a small change, but it made a world of difference. I felt like I could actually say no if I needed to, and there was no guilt tripping or emotional fallout when I did. Matt noticed the shift too. He mentioned that Kayla seemed more relaxed when they talked, and even Tom seemed less tense around me. He wasn't so quick to jump in and defend Kayla over every little thing, which made me think Kayla had probably shared some of what we'd talked about. One night, Matt and I were getting ready for bed when he turned to me and said, "I'm proud of you, you know?" I frowned, confused. For what? For sticking it out, for putting in the effort to talk things through with Kayla and being patient, even when you didn't want to be. It means a lot. Hearing that from him was like a balm for all the frustration and resentment I'd been carrying. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I'm proud of you too for supporting me and for having my back, even when it's complicated. He reached out and pulled me into a hug, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were on the same team again. So here we are, a few weeks after that tense family dinner, and things are actually better. I've been able to say no when I need to, and Kayla's been respectful of that. We've started meeting up for lunch or coffee, just to chat, and it feels more like a genuine friendship now, not an obligation. We're still waiting for our own baby news, but I've started to feel more hopeful. I know it'll happen when it's meant to, and in the meantime, I'm learning to focus on the good things I do have, like a supportive husband and the possibility of a closer relationship with my sister-in-law. I guess what I've learned through all of this is that sometimes the people we think are making our lives harder are really just struggling too, and a little more honesty and empathy can go a long way. So, thank you to everyone who commented and messaged me with advice. It helped me see things more clearly and gave me the courage to speak up. Things aren't perfect, but they're definitely looking up. I'm still working on my boundaries and learning to communicate better, but I'm hopeful we can keep building on this. Do you think it's possible for relationships to change like this for the better? Or am I being naive and thinking that we won't just slip back into old patterns? Would love to hear your thoughts or any advice you might have for keeping things positive moving forward.